To begin the story of my ghost girl, we have to go back to the beginning of 2019. I was in a toxic relationship with someone who didn't appreciate my time, didn't appreciate my guitar playing, did nothing but whine and complain about how I wasn't satisfied in the relationship, never did anything for me, invited freeloaders over who made our relationship worse than it already was, selling drugs on our property, inviting strangers over, and when I said to her it was me or them, she couldn't make a decision, so I finally packed up and left and could do something better with myself and my time. When I did, I had the confidence and courage in myself saying, if I can leave a toxic relationship and never look back, I can do anything. That was when I had the confidence to think that I can go to San Diego, and after months of stacking up cash, working my ass off and educating myself, I was able to achieve it. Before that was when I took the leap of faith in April. The week of the following year, I drove all the way out to see family. Then my uncle was telling me that tomorrow is going to be 420 and that it'd be a good idea to go to Denver because weed was legal, and said have fun. After that, the story begins. To make a long story short, as I do not wish to make this a 20-minute documentary, I met her when I was on the streets on the phone with my uncle about my confidence. I saw a woman in a red dress out of everyone in the crowd. I approached her with confidence and talked to her. Next thing I know, we were in our own little world, having adventures in the city, walking fast, having a romance love story, walking in the city. After a while, I didn't know where I was or where I parked my car, taking buses and public subways to the other side of the city, which turned out to be Civic Center. I literally told her that I was getting scared and that she was going to mug me and stuff, and then she laughed at me and said, "Why would you think that?" And every time I would crack a joke or say something silly, she would laugh and say, "You're so stupid." To make this story short, Together and I had adventures in Civic Center, just smoking joints, walking around. Then she got me this pipe from Rick and Morty. It was so lubba lubba dub dub. Then after that, we ended up taking the subway back to her place, which was actually a 5-minute walk from where I parked my car, which was what made it weird out of all. During the whole time, I had no idea where I was or what we were doing. We were just in our own little world. We ended up in an apartment room of one of her friends who claimed that he couldn't see. We were all in there smoking joints from that 70s show kind of like vibe. And when I told her I needed to grab my guitar, I ended up getting the guitar, which is a 5-minute walk to the car. She ended up waiting in front of me at the building. And then we got in back to the apartment room, and then she would always leave but then come right back, which gave me the paranoia like she was never going to come back. It would have been awkward, especially being in that apartment building with the other stranger. She ended up being back within 5 minutes. After all that, I ended up getting dehydrated, having a glass of water from the faucet. Next thing I know, we were out on the balcony taking these pictures. After that, we were just chit-chatting and talking. It was kind of like a love story overall. After that, we walked around the city some more with my heavy guitar all day, just walking and walking and walking and walking. I was surprised I didn't pass out from dehydration and not sleeping, as I only did have 4 hours of sleep that day. After all of that, we ended up making out on the streets, getting kinky together in public, making out in the elevator 9 stories up, and even making out on the balcony. It was just overall a romantic love scene. After that, I realized my parking was about to expire, so I had to take off. I ended up writing my name and number on a piece of paper, and then she put it under her bra, making sure it was secure. And then after that, I took off. I was on the state line of Utah at a rest stop on the state borderline. I look back east of Colorado and kind of think back to that event and wonder, should I go back? Something tells me I should have went back, but I was focused on getting to San Diego. After all of my wild adventures in San Diego, getting things figured out while being homeless, sometime around May, I fell onto a Craigslist scam of $2,100, which I made a video about. After that, my phone was stolen, and during those times, I thought to myself, how come that woman has never called me or texted me asking me how I'm doing? Like nothing. When I tried retrieving the phone, we eventually called the number, went straight to voicemail, but it turned out my phone couldn't receive voicemails because it wasn't turned on for some reason. And of course, filing a police report, we couldn't do the Find My iPhone app as it wasn't turned on. So it had me thinking maybe she did try to call me and that maybe she wasn't able to reach out to me. Whatever the reason is, I don't know. So after that, I thought long and hard, thinking I should go back to Denver to see her. I felt like it was silly driving halfway across the country to see a woman who hasn't reached out to me. But the urges in my mind kept telling me to go. And after I stayed with one of my family members in Northern California for a bit, I finally paid off the credit card and had the money to go and drive to Denver. On the way there, I stopped in Vegas and had some fun, but that's another story. After driving hours and hours in the hot desert at 118 degrees, I finally arrived. This is where the girl's apartment was. This was the front entrance. I think we were about on the 9th floor. And then we had that balcony view. So a little across the street, I was right around here on the phone with one of my family members, just talking about my confidence in going to San Diego and having a future and success in living there. Out of nowhere, that was when the girl came around in the red dress out of the whole crowd, and she was walking pretty fast. And I think we were on this street because I recognized the clock tower down here. So I had to walk up pretty quickly, and that was where I made my introduction. Right after meeting her, we were already moving around the city very fast. I think we were either around here or somewhere else, just walking and walking and walking non-stop all the way till we reached Civic Center, which was all the way on the other side of the city from where I parked my car. Not long after I met her, we were already taking walks all around the city at a very fast pace. I can't even remember where I was. I don't even know if I was on this street or another street. But we were moving pretty quickly and taking public transportation, and before we knew it, I think we were at Civic Center, and then we ended up on Mall Street. After dark, when walking on Mall Street, I ended up over here eating a poke bowl, and then ended up going all the way to the top floor, just viewing down, seeing all the people. What made me sad was I remember seeing all these couples, and here I was alone, knowing that the girl I had died. And I remember later on when I had a chance to speak to her, she told me she was up there the whole time trying to hold my hand. Here is Civic Center Park. This is where me and the girl were walking all across the city, taking random public transportation, and we somehow ended up here. Back when we were here on 420, there was security checkpoints. I remember I was the one who went through, took all my stuff out, then I waited on her, and they were looking at me like, what am I waiting on? And we ended up over here. I can remember this area. I remember we were hanging around here. I remember somewhere around these corners we were sitting on the bench smoking joints, and then we found some guy asking if I can get some papers, and he randomly gave us some papers and some weed, and I was like, okay, that's more than I asked for, but keep your mouth shut, right? So anyway, I remember we were sitting on the benches out here, and I left the weed and stuff and lighter on top of her dress while she was sitting down as a table, literally using it as a table. Just sat there and didn't mind it. But then she got up and I was like, sweetie, no. Now you almost broke my pipe. Another part I would like to add is when I was at the motel room the next morning taking a quick shower, the phone in the room began to ring, and normally the phones in the hotel rooms don't ring, and when I answered it out of a little bit of fear, it turned out to be a wake-up call reminder for 9 a.m., which I thought was pretty weird as I did not request one. I had a bit of resistance and was a little nervous to go see her. I felt kind of stupid driving all that way to go see her. I mean, it was just a girl. And I was like, okay, I made it this far. I may as well continue further. When I asked security about her, he said that he didn't know who I was talking about, but the parents lived there. I mean, that's a little weird. When I got in the lobby, this elderly woman who looked like she had been living there for years came up to me and asked me who I was talking about, and I said, Sierra. This is when I got a cringing story, and I actually recorded it, and this was the recording. Probably not going to remember this, but can you say it again? What happened to Sierra?
Sierra OD'd on medication, and then they put her in the hospital, and she was brain damaged. So after that, I think her son took her back to wherever he was at, and I hadn't heard anything else really.
And you said she committed suicide?
She was committing suicide. She OD'd on medication.
Oh,
Everybody
wow.
else's medication but her own. That was not a cool thing to do.
Okay.
I felt for her because they were going to kick her out. And instead of them kicking her out, she did that instead.
Okay.
So she's been gone out of here for a while, sweetie.
I gotta go. I also forgot that this part too, but when we found out what happened to Sierra and how she died, it turned out that she was at a bar and some guy drugged her drink to where she got sleepy, and as he abducted her, he injected her full of drugs, which explained the drug overdose part of the recording, and unfortunately she did not make it. That's also why the sketch drawing has pictures of holes all around her arms as he was injecting her full of drugs, and she did not know where she was when she died. It's a really sick and sad story. The recording gave me shivers to my spine, realizing that this person had been dead for years and died of a drug overdose on the way to the hospital. It killed me inside, and I felt like I was gone and my colors faded away. And as I was walking on the streets, it really started to hit me slowly. And this is the part where I tell people that I went to Denver in August 2019 and never returned. It felt like I really didn't return. I just felt lost. And I walked hours after hours in the city taking pictures of the skyline of the city, especially at night. They were good photos, I will admit, but I just felt empty inside, to best describe it. The next morning, I was gonna head out, so I went into a motel at a Super 8 to spend the night. There was nothing available anywhere in the area, including the hotel I originally stayed at, so the only thing available was a 2-bed motel, which kind of felt like a slap in the face. It was like, hey, you just found out your loved one died, here's a 2-bed hotel to think about it. It was that insulting. So after sitting on the bed just kind of crying silently, I didn't know what to do with myself. It really shattered me at that moment. The next morning when I was getting breakfast, I was about to head to San Diego. I think I was north of Brighton, and I was like, hey, why not meet her parents and get to know her more and tell me like how she is? Yeah, great idea. Talk to the parents about their dead daughter about how she is. Anyway, after I went back to the apartment building, the security guy was acting really weird with me and said, hey, that Sierra chick still lives here. And I was like, okay. So after getting on the elevator, thinking of all the times we had together, making out in the elevator, having adventures to make myself feel better, I get to the door and I had confidence knocking on it for about a good 15 or 20 minutes. I heard Spanish TV and Spanish people talking, so I assumed it was the right room. The part that was weird was I knocked heavily and loudly for about 15 or 20 minutes. I think the most impressive part was nobody opened the door telling me to go away, or nobody opened the door to shoot me, because apparently somebody being annoying knocking at the door for a long period of time, it's legal to shoot that person in the state of Colorado. I was more impressed that nobody told me to leave or shut the hell up after that much knocking, but the person at the end of the hallway opened the door and wondered who was knocking that whole time, and I said it was me. And oddly enough, there was no conflict or anything. She was just wondering who it was. Before giving up, I asked the security guy if I can have a piece of paper and a pen and write down my name, saying that I was the guy from San Diego and that I drove from San Francisco to Denver to see her, and put my number on it and a piece of tape to tape on the door with the name Sierra on it. I knocked heavily and loudly, running to the elevator, went back to the hallway, no answer. After about 10 minutes, I finally got back down and walked to my car, and this was when things got really, really weird. I was heading to my car about, I think, 5 minutes later. I get a call from my grandmother, and normally she doesn't call me unless she has a legit reason. The moment I answered, it wasn't a, hi, how is Denver? How's Colorado? How you doing? It was basically, what are you still doing there? And stuff like that. And I was like, well, I'm actually about to head back to San Diego. And then said, what do you think you're doing? Why would you do that? Why would you talk to this girl's parents about their dead daughter that's been dead for quite some time? What do you think they're going to say to that? How do you think they're going to feel? what do you think could have happened and stuff like that, and kind of an angry tone, basically telling me that I should be ashamed of what I did and that I need to get out of there. I can't fully remember what was said, but that's the best I can remember. And in the end, she was saying to me, if they really wanted to talk to you, they will. And that really sunk in. I was like, come to think of it, if they really did want to reach out to me, they would. And I can't remember what the ending of the conversation was. I think it was something like, get back to San Diego. And I kind of didn't listen. I wanted to get my bass guitar and play for a little bit. And I was playing bass on 16th Mall Street. And I couldn't focus or play. Something in the back of my mind was just urging me to leave. As I stopped playing, I looked at the mountain around the city, and I felt like I could see San Diego on the other side. And the urge to get out of there was stronger and stronger. And it felt like the whole city was starting to shake and have an earthquake. So I freaked out a little bit, got in my car, and drove out of there with the nice scenic view of Colorado all the way west towards San Diego. I ended up at the same rest stop in Utah, looking back, wondering what could have happened if I stayed there any longer. After that, I moved forward. I went back to San Diego. I ended up getting my first apartment. And it wasn't until October it started hitting me, because I was like, man, I love this area of my apartment in Poway. It reminds me of Colorado. And I'm on the beach, just walking on the ocean. And I was just like, man, I wonder what it would be like if me and Sierra were here together. She would love this place. And that's where it hits you really, really hard. It hit me really hard to where, like, I couldn't get out of bed unless I was forced to for my delivery job when a delivery came up. It reached to the point to where I had a little bit of punishments to where I couldn't take orders in San Diego for 2 weeks or so. So I had to go back up north and see my uncle and get my acceptance rate back up, then come back to San Diego. For the most part, I wouldn't leave my hometown region. I wouldn't go to the beach. I wouldn't go to the mountains. I wouldn't have the adventures like I always did. I kind of just became recluse and introverted, not wanting to do anything. I even went and saw The Mentor in Los Angeles, and the interview we had together on that one video was just me out of it and a total disaster. And when I told him in the end of the video, I told him what happened and that the girl I was talking about died when I went to go see her. And even this guy, who is tough and kind of unemotional, said to me, dude, that sucks, man. Are you going to be okay? And I was like, I think I'll be fine. I just need time to heal. But years went by and I didn't get better. After that, I wasn't making progress. I wasn't moving forward like I was supposed to do, which was get another job, start bartending, and work my way towards starting a business. Overall, I was crushed. After the pandemic happened, that was when I had the advantage to leaving California and head back to my hometown. After I got my second apartment, I kept having dreams of San Diego, just walking around the city like I was lost. I thought it was from depression, but after this, it was sometime in, I think, May. I moved in April 2020. I ended up meeting this chick about a week after moving in, and after we talked for about a month or so, she ended up telling me there was this Grim Reaper looking guy named Skinwalker who came out of nowhere on the video chat and was literally pointing at him saying, he's right here. And it was kind of cringy. And in the middle of the night, we were talking, and then that Skinwalker guy was looking right at me, and out of nowhere in the conversation, she asked me, do you know anyone who you miss? And I mentioned Sierra, and the Skinwalker guy says, I know that person. And then the snap of the thumb, he teleported her all the way over there and ended up being right next to the couch with her. And after she was describing me who she was, and it was literally just like her, and it was really, really cringing. And as if that wasn't cringing enough, this is a moment that happened about a few days later, and I'll never forget it. In the middle of a video chat, she ended up getting possessed, which was around 3 a.m., where she was literally being lifted from the bed about a few feet. And then it ended up being Sarah talking to me, and it was like we were talking all over again. And I will never forget the conversation, but basically what she was saying was like, I would never thought less of you, and that I loved your apartment and I hated seeing you struggle, and that all those times you were sleeping on the floor, I was around the closet. And I said, were you in the closet? And she cracked a joke saying, no, silly, that's what gay people do. And then said, I love that you kept your head up no matter what, and that I love the apartment, and that I love the beach, the apartment reminded me of home, and then she said, in a way, I kind of picked it out for you, which I thought was pretty sweet because I love the apartment too. And after that, it was like a 5 or 10 minute conversation, which felt like forever. I remember I was asking her about me knocking on the door to that apartment, and she said, yeah, and it felt like forever, even though it was 10 or 20 minutes because I was right next to you the whole time. The whole time you were knocking, I was trying to scream at you, stop knocking, I'm right here. Really sad how I didn't know she was there the whole time. It turned out the reason she never made her presence known in that apartment was because she didn't want to scare me, which she really would have. I would have probably shit my pants. To wrap up the story, when we last talked or heard about her was when me and that same girl went to the gym together in early 2022. She ended up being in the gym with us as we were talking about her. And when I asked more about it, like how come she never reached out to me or never did any of this or that, and it turned out the three-way conversation, what she was telling me was she was getting frustrated and that communication isn't as easy as you think it is. And she ended up getting so frustrated she knocked over weight racks that were sitting on the desk with nobody around it within 50 feet. And the people running on the treadmill started making a high frequency sound up and down that kind of sounded like some of the music I was writing. And after that, she said I should move on from her. And I said, it's hard to when you're irreplaceable, when other women have TikTok brain and play games and waste your time and don't take you seriously. And then she said she will always be there, but you need to move on so that way you can be better for yourself and be happy. And it really did take a while to move on from that. After that incident from early 2022, that was really the last time we saw or heard from her. Even the woman herself says she doesn't know. She kind of faded in and out. My guess was maybe that now her presence was known from the music I wrote and documentaries about her. Maybe she was finally able to move on, but who knows? Either way, it's a pretty interesting little love story that we've had together, and that was actually how the Colorado song was made. But if you want to hear the full video of how the Colorado song was written, drop a comment.